I want to admit something I am not proud of. There is a bed at the north end of our garden that grows worse than every other bed we have. Smaller cabbages, thinner leeks, soil that dries into a crust after 2 days of sun. It grows worse because of me. Because one spring, a long time ago, I took a spade to it. Come and look at it. Here is the wall, and here are the beds along it. This one, and this one, and this one, nobody has turned them over in living memory. Not in my time, and not in the time of the brother before me, and he was old when I came. And then this one, the one I dug. You can see it without me telling you. The soil sits lower. It cracks. Things planted in it come up a week behind everything else. One afternoon with a spade, and the ground still remembers it. Let me tell you why I did it. Because the reason will sound familiar to you. I came to this garden as a young man, and I thought I knew what a garden was. A garden was ground that you turned. That is what my father did. That is what every man in the village did. In spring, you open the earth, you break it up, you let the air in, and then you plant. And there was a reason behind it that everyone agreed on. Over the winter, the soil packs down hard. If you do not loosen it, nothing can push roots through it. So you dig. It is heavy work, and it hurts your back. And the hurting over the is part of it. The hurting is how you know you have done right by your garden. So I looked at those beds along the wall, untouched, and to my eye they looked neglected, lazy. I thought the old brother had simply grown too tired to keep them properly, and that I would put it right. I took the spade out after chapter 1 afternoon, and I turned that whole bed over, end to end. He came out and stood at the edge of it. He did not shout at me. He did not tell me I was a fool, which I was. He asked me to leave the rest alone for 1 year, and then to come back and look at both. That was all. He would not explain it. He said, a man does not believe a thing he is told, he believes a thing he sees, so I should go and see. I have had a long time since then to learn what he would not explain, and it comes down to this. The ground is not a material, it is a household. Under your feet, in every handful, there is a living population. Earthworms, first of all, and far more of them than you would guess. They spend their lives driving tunnels down through the soil. And those tunnels are not just holes. They are how air gets down to the roots. They are how rain soaks in instead of running off the top and away. And there is something finer than worms down there. Threads of fungus, pale, thinner than a spider's silk, spreading out through the soil in a net. Those threads reach places roots cannot, and they take hold of water and minerals down there and hand them over to the plant. The plant pays them in sugar. It is a trade, and it is old, and most garden plants are in on it. That net does not appear in a season. It is built slowly, and it is fragile. Now, if this sounds like a lot to take on faith, look at a wood. Nobody digs a forest. No one has ever gone through the trees in spring, turning the ground over so the oaks can breathe. And what grows there? The largest and oldest living things in the country, standing on ground that has never once been opened. The floor of a wood gets leaves dropped on it every autumn, and that is all. Everything else happens underneath, on its own, without a single tool. That should give a gardener pause. It gave me pause, eventually. So think about what I did that afternoon with my spade. Imagine a household that has spent years building itself. Passages dug, stores laid in, everything connected to everything else, all of it out of sight and all of it working. And then once a year, a giant walks through and turns the whole thing over. Not out of malice. He believes he is helping. He has been told that this is what good neighbors do. That is what a spade is down there. Every tunnel collapsed, every thread of that net torn through, and the household starts again from nothing and spends the whole season rebuilding. And just as it is finished, spring comes round and the giant returns. I did that once, and I could see it for years. A man who does it every spring never lets the ground get past the rebuilding. But here is the part that took me longest to accept, and it is the part I would most like you to hear. The digging is where the weeds come from. I know how that sounds. Digging is the thing you do to be rid of weeds. Stay with me. Under your garden, spread through the soil at every depth, there is a store of seeds. Not this year's seeds. Seeds from years back, and from further back than that, lying still. Ground holds them the way a cellar holds preserves, and they can keep for a very long time down there. They lie there, because nothing has told them to start. Buried deep, they simply wait. And then a spade comes through and lifts a slice of that store up to the surface where the light and the warmth are and sets it down on top. You have not cleared anything. You have sown. You have taken a crop that was asleep and you have planted it evenly across your whole garden with your own hands, and then you spend the summer on your knees dealing with what came up. The year after I turned that bed, it grew more weeds than any ground I have ever tended. I blamed the weather. I blamed the seed I had bought. It did not once occur to me that I was the one who had planted them. Now, the question you are wanting to ask is the one I asked. So let me take it head on. If nobody turns the soil, does it not go hard? Does the air not need letting in? It is a fair question and it deserves a straight answer. Digging does loosen the ground for a few weeks. Then rain falls on that fluffed up soil and it settles tighter than before because you have just destroyed the very things that were holding it open. The worms are scattered, the threads are cut, the little passages are gone. So you dig again next spring and it goes hard again by midsummer, and you conclude that this ground simply is heavy and always was. Whereas the worms, left alone, work all year, and they go down far deeper than any spade of mine ever went. A tunnel a foot down, 2 feet down, is doing more for the air in your soil than an afternoon of my sweat ever did. Stop opening the ground, and after a season or two, you end up with more air in it, not less. That is the opposite of what I believed for years, and I only accepted it because I could see it in 2 beds, side by side. If this is any use to you, do me the kindness of subscribing. I put out what I have learned in this garden every week, and I would be glad of your company. Now, what we do instead, which is almost nothing, once a year, we put compost on top, 2 inches of it, spread evenly over the bed, like icing a cake, and then we leave it. That is the whole of it. We do not fork it in. We do not turn it under. We do not mix it with anything. It sits on the surface and it stays there. The worms come up into it and take it down for us, a little at a time, all through the year. They do the mixing, and they do it better and deeper than I could, and they do it without cutting anything apart. You plant straight into that compost layer. Make a hole in it with your hand or a trowel, set the plant in, firm it, and that is all the disturbance the bed ever gets. The whole spring job that used to take me a week of aching now takes me an afternoon with a barrow. And if you are starting a new bed on grass, you do not need to strip the turf. Lay plain cardboard flat over the grass. Big boxes are best. Pull off the tape and any glossy labels first, and overlap the pieces well, because grass will find any gap you leave. Water the cardboard so it lies down and stays put. Then put your compost on top of it. Not a scattering 4 to 6 inches, a proper depth, because this bed has to feed the plants until the cardboard is gone. And then plant into it. You can plant the same day. Underneath, the grass is in the dark and dies, and the worms come up to eat the cardboard, and by the end of the season, there is no cardboard left and no grass either. What you have is a bed made without lifting a single spadeful. I have made beds this way, and it feels like getting away with something. Now, the objection I hear most, where is all this compost supposed to come from? Make what you can. Every kitchen scrap, every weed you pull, every barrow load of autumn leaves. That heap is the engine of the whole garden, and it costs nothing but the walking. But be honest about the arithmetic. 2 inches over a big garden is more than most heaps will give you in the early years. So for the first season or two, you may need to buy some in, and it is far cheaper by the load than by the bag. A local yard will deliver you a heap of it, and the need shrinks. Ground that is looked after this way grows richer, and richer ground wants less help. What you put on in the third year is less than what you put on in the first. So what actually changed in the beds I left alone? The first thing I noticed was water. After a dry week, I could push a finger into those beds and find it cool and damp under the surface. The bed I had dug was dust at the same depth. I water far less than I used to, and I lose fewer plants when the weather turns hard. The second thing was the weeds, and it took 2 years to see it properly. There are fewer of them because I stopped bringing new ones up. And the ones that do come, they come up out of loose surface compost, root and all, with 2 fingers, no fork, no kneeling for an hour. The third thing was my back, and I will not pretend that is a small matter at my age. But I want to be careful here, because the first year is not a miracle. The first year is decent. It is the second and the third when the ground turns dark and soft and starts holding together like a living thing. This is a method for people willing to wait a season to be convinced. Let me save you the 4 ways this goes wrong. The first is mixing the compost in. I understand the urge. It feels unfinished, sitting on top. Resist it. The moment you fork it under, you are digging again, and the whole point is lost. Leave it lying there and let the worms carry it down. The second is too thin a layer. A dusting does nothing. 2 inches on an established bed and 4 to 6 on a new bed over cardboard. Less than that and the grass comes through, and you will decide the method does not work. The third is perennial weeds under the cardboard. Couch, grass, bindweed, anything that travels by root cardboard alone will not beat it. Double the cardboard over those patches, or dig those particular roots out once, properly, at the very start, once. Then never again. The fourth is walking on the beds. Soil that is never dug is also soil that must never be compacted, and your own boots are now the heaviest thing that will ever touch it. Keep to the paths and reach in from the side. If a bed is too wide to reach across, it is too wide. Now let me be straight with you, because I am not selling a miracle out of a garden bed. This is not less work in the first year. It is different work. You will spend the time you used to spend digging on hauling compost instead, and hauling compost is not nothing. It will not fix a drainage problem. If your garden sits in standing water every winter, that is a different matter, and no amount of compost on the surface will answer it. And not every plant is in on that trade with the fungus threads I described. The cabbage family, your kale, your cabbages, your turnips, does not form those partnerships at all. They still benefit from the worms and from the structure and from the water held in good ground, but I would be overstating my case if I let you think every plant in the garden is plugged into that net. It is not so. And there is one honest thing to say for the spade. It is very good at getting out deep perennial roots. That is a real job that digging does well. I am not telling you to never lift a spade in your life. I am telling you not to open the whole garden every spring out of habit. If you have been digging your beds for years, you do not need to start over. You do not need new beds. You do not need to build anything. You do not need to buy a tool. This spring, when the ground dries out and your hands start to itch for it, just do not. Put compost on top instead and plant into it and leave the ground closed. That is the entire change. Stopping is the method. So, short and plain, do not turn your beds. Once a year, 2 inches of compost on the surface and never fork it in. For new ground, cardboard over the grass, and 4 to 6 inches of compost on top, planted the same day. Stay off the soil and reach in from the paths. Deal with perennial roots once at the start. Then leave the spade in the shed and give it 2 seasons before you judge it, because the first year is good and the third year is a different garden. The old brother never explained any of it to me. He just asked me to wait a year and look at both beds. I looked, and I have not turned a bed since. That was more than 30 years ago, and that one bed I dug is still the worst ground we have. So tell me below, because I read everything you write. Do you still turn your garden over in the spring, and did anyone ever tell you why? I would like to know what you were taught, because I was taught the same. Next time I will show you how we kept the garlic through to spring without a single head going soft. The garden gate is always open. Come and walk with me again.